Hello, my name is Tabs and welcome to episode 113 of the Growth Podcast. Now, I hope you're doing very well on this fine Sunday and basically have been spending your day looking at hotels and booking your day off for the Premier League, FA Cup, League Cup and Champions League victory parade next May, June. As after yesterday's performance, I'm sure you will all agree it's pretty much guaranteed that we are winning the lot this season coming. So, and joining me to discuss his accommodation and why yesterday's preseason result is now so meaningful and the defeat against Villarreal is not, is Jamie. Jamie, how are you doing?
Very well, thank you, mate. Yeah.
Are you as buoyant as I am?
Well, not having watched the full game and having to deal with watching it back on a train today, not quite as buoyant as you are, unfortunately. But you know, I'm just really buoyant about the fact this is it now. Season starts. We can stop prattling on about meaningless stuff or loads of dribble about transfer business and stuff like that. We can actually get on with enjoying watching the Arsenal. I can't wait.
Indeed. Good. So look, in today's show, we're going to primarily be looking at back at the game. I feel very odd calling them Athletic Club. I do want to call them Bilbao, but apparently that is not the done thing. So, but Athletic Bilbao, Athletic Club, whatever. We'll have a nod towards the Villarreal game, and then we'll touch a bit on final bit of summer transfer business and a bit on next week's opener versus Man United. And look, we will do a proper season and Man United preview and predictions episode later in the week. So look out for that. And but before we get on with the show proper, can I ask our listeners a small favour? And if you could please give us a bit of a rating, preferably 5-star, leave a comment, follow, subscribe. It will help in terms of getting the pod noticed on the podcast app. So trying to grow the show and get noticed. So if you can do that, spend 5 minutes, it'd be greatly appreciated. So thank you. So anyway, look, getting on with the show, as we always do, even with your minimalistic watching. But in terms of the vibe of the game or what you saw of the game, do you have any particular highlights and lowlights from the Atletico Bilbao Emirates Cup victory?
So you've gone for, you said you're not going to say it, and then you've gone with not only Bilbao but also Atletico when it's athletic.
Exactly. I know I'm going to get it wrong,
mate. Come on now.
I've got AC here.
AC Bilbao. Is that what you really want to go with, mate? You might as well say Balboa at this point. Like, it's just.
I'm very close.
So,
anyway,
I mean,
that Spanish football team that we played yesterday. Any highlights?
I mean, super fun to watch the bits back that I watched because we looked pretty fluent, and I thought that Zubi caught the eye quite a bit from the stuff that I was watching. I really enjoyed seeing the Gyokeres goal, obviously, and Kai. I really enjoyed the way he took that last goal as well. So yeah, it was and I think the other bit as well was also seeing Noni come on and that's a player that I'm really excited for. So it was quite nice to see him get a little bit of playing time and see him come on in the position that I'd like to see him get a bit of a run at. So yeah, it was, for me, it was nice to watch that back, and it seemed like it was a bit of vibes. And knowing what the Emirates is like when you get the pre-season games and a decent win, I imagine it was a very lovely day out for you, mate.
Yeah, I was fortunate enough. I just lucked out on getting a ticket. I was literally just on the ticket exchange, I think, just looking for other tickets, just chanced my arm having a look at that one, and one popped up, and fine, I might as well give it a go. And yeah, look, it was just lovely being back at the Emirates. It was a sunny day, the atmosphere was great, a bit different to normal match days as there was a lot of people attending who don't normally get the chance, lots of families with their kids, so it was just low stress, a lot of fun. And also what I liked was just watching it in person and forget about it, because we've been watching these games on the Arsenal website on a stream, whatever. And I had a decent ticket in the upper tier, clock end, block 122, row 6. So right behind, sort of to the right of the goal, and you just get a better feel for what the team are trying to do, and you see the bigger picture, and just a greater appreciation. Now look, you were at the Villarreal game, so. Granted, the result wasn't what we wanted, and even elements of the performance weren't there. But I would imagine that you, despite the loss, would have had a greater sense of what we were trying to do as a pre-season exercise as opposed to a game that we needed to win.
Yeah, I mean, I felt in the Villarreal game that we were giving it a go, trying to be a little bit plan B-ish, actually, with that Norgard Merino midfield, which it's kind of weird to watch because it's all a bit ploddy.
Functional.
That midfield. Yeah, it's very functional and very ploddy and a bit sideways at times and whatever. But it also has the ability for us to just be that bit more direct and actually bypass that midfield and not try and build up through it. And perhaps that is a plan to do with Gyökeres at times in particular. Because also Nwaneri as compared to Odegaard is a more direct player. So it felt like maybe what we were doing there was a far more distinct front four with even though Mourinho actually spent a lot of time very much... He looked like he was trying to imitate the Xhaka role that we all thought he was probably going to have when he came in. And despite his efforts up front last season, he wasn't quite there in doing that, hanging off the striker, sort of left midfield Xhaka role. Saying that, given how the boy kind of learns and the fact he never had a real run doing it last season, maybe if he has to have a run at it at any point in the season, I'd have decent faith in him being able to do it because he picked up striker pretty fast, Yeah. And he's a very, very accomplished midfielder. I'm just not sure his very natural position for us is one that we cater to. But I think it will be... That was the feeling I felt, at least anyway, was that it felt like we were trying to be a bit more direct, and I could certainly understand why on a stream it might not have looked so good. But it was what I call a scratch 11, right? This is an 11 that you're not going to see playing together very often. And I think it was probably a bridge between two Arsenal teams, which is the Arsenal team that was out in Asia, where it's very much, sticking players in different places, having a look at different players, having a look at different things to do. And then the team that we saw against Athletic, where ultimately that is far more of probably the team that we're going to see against United, or as close to it as we might get at this point in time. And I think that Villarreal team on the other hand was a bit of who do we just want to throw out for this game that's between those two sort of phases of the pre-season? And it was just a bit disjointed for that reason. But I didn't mind it because I liked quite a few of the performances. I really liked, I mainly picked up a ticket on the Wednesday whilst I'm at work. I was sat there at my laptop and I just went, thing is, do I just want to go and watch Max Dowman in the flesh? So I picked up a ticket largely just to go and watch him. But I was delighted to see Mosquera in a couple of positions. He played right back and centre half, and he looked decent in both, and that was like brilliant. That's great. That's I really like the look of him. And again, he was a highlight when I watched some of the bits today of the game from yesterday. And Dowman was a massive highlight. It was a reason to go, even though he had a little cameo. He goes in, he wins a penalty. He just looks a bit good, and mainly as well, looking at it and going, Jesus Christ, this lad's quite big. He doesn't look like a 15-year-old. It's just like when MLS came into the team in the League Cup, and I was like, that boy, as stature-wise, he's smaller in terms of height, but he had the body. He had the body, he had the it's called the Premier League backside, where he's he's got a bit of build to him and he can swing himself about. And Dowman similarly as well looks physically pretty capable, and that's really scary. So I really enjoyed elements of the game, even if it wasn't this kind of well put together performance. And I felt you don't want to take too much out of it. You take a few positives, you don't care about the rest. I did find it hilarious seeing that Nicolas Pepe was there. I hadn't even cottoned on to the fact he was a Villarreal last season at all. Can't say I watched much of them. Can't say I'm going to watch much of them at all this next season as well, because they've added to that ex-Arsenal contingent, with unfavourable.
It's either ex-Arsenal or ex-Tottenham there, isn't it? And I didn't quite understand the booze. It's not like it's anything his fault. I think he was misused. The price tag was not his fault. You paid 40 million for him.
I was outright pissed off, to be honest. The guy didn't leave in any bad way at the Arsenal.
And nothing was his fault. It was
nothing that was his fault. And I thought he had some good performances. He is nowhere near in that bracket of Man United players that you can talk about as worst Premier League signings of all time. Don't get me wrong, is he one of our worst signings? Yeah, he is. Because for the price tag and where we were at the time, we needed a lot more. We did, 100%. We could have spent that money far more wisely. But it ain't on him. It's on Raul Sandehi. We still think something's dodgy's gone there, especially in my opinion. And he just happened to be the guy. But was he worse than Gervinho? No, he was better than Gervinho. He's our best. In fact, he might well be our second best Ivorian behind Kolo Touré, to be honest. Yeah. So
maybe a Boué. I don't know. It's a good day.
It's a bit of half and half. Yeah, absolutely. But it's honestly, I thought it was when I heard the boos go up, and I was chatting to a couple of other people actually at the Lamb afterwards, and told it wasn't something they heard around their sections of the stadium.
It came up on the stream. That was the thing. So I thought maybe
there was a good 30 or 40 blokes, like in one corner of where I was, gave him a big old boo, and I was just like, I mean, it's pre-season, and it's Nicolas Pepe. Like I was on the other end, was happy to give him a clap, and when he scored his goal, I half enjoyed it, to be honest. I mean, it was a bit scrappy and whatever, but like I quite like the lads. You know, there's nothing. He did nothing wrong. He just unfortunately, the biggest problem he had was that breathing down his neck was our generational right winger. You know,
talent. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Biggest problem he had was he was never going to get the time, and he couldn't play any other position, and he was a bit one-dimensional, right? But he scored a goal every 4 games. It's not bad.
Yeah. Anyway, that was Villarreal, and just back to yesterday, a couple of other highlights for me. The new Asahi beer was great, and
yes,
I was not a fan of Camden's. I must admit, or it's never my favourite. I found it a bit too bitter, and but yesterday it was a nice on a hot summer's day. It was very crisp and very refreshing. So that's the analysis you've come to listen for, folks. So get yourself a.
I've heard the meantime is very good as well. That was that was being shown.
I didn't understand Wales' text. I thought he was saying, "Oh, meantime, I'm enjoying this," and I didn't know. I didn't know that was.
No, I was. When we first got the Asahi deal, that was the one I wanted to see because I really enjoy a meantime. It's quite. They've got meantime across the city in most of the pubs, and it's a classic of mine. And so, but I didn't spot it when I was there at Villarreal. So when he said, I'm now realising though he got a club ticket. So I'm really
it might only be club.
This is only in club. I'm going to be very upset, and I might need to have a couple of times this season where I go and pick up a club ticket again. So we'll see.
Just get your meantime. So and actually the new player displays on the jumbotron, they look quite cool and a bit atmospheric.
It's pretty nice, isn't it?
It just stood out and said, actually they're cool. That's actually good. The media people or the graphics people have come up with something quite nice. So when they're announcing them and the goal scoring, I thought, actually that's pretty cool. So I enjoyed that. So just some small things. So when you for those that are fortunate enough to get a ticket, just get yourself a beer and watch the jumbotron. As for the game, you've touched on a ton of highlights around players, and I think we're going to go through those later. You know, the likes of Zubi, like a Gyokeres, but I think my main highlight other than the day was Kai's goal. That was my number one highlight. I was really, really pleased for him to get the goal and the manner which he scored it. I rewatched it again. I didn't realise. I just thought he started from just on the halfway line. He started practically from the edge of the penalty area.
He's run 60 yards, isn't he?
Yeah, he's ran from inside his own half, past 3 defenders to get onto a pass over the top, first time pass, and then he uses his strength to keep the defender, his newfound strength to keep the defender off, and then a great finish. Now, from where I was sort of half expecting him to go down because there was a couple of times yesterday we think, if that's a Premier League game, do you go down? I think there was one with Saka that he skipped over, whereas do you get the pen? But it was so great to see him do that, and look, with the clamour for a striker, Gyokeres coming, and all the hype around him, it's easy to forget what a fucking good player Kai is and how important he is to our team. So I'm really pleased and for him and that he doesn't become the forgotten, and I don't think he will, but you know what, people like our fans are very sitting on the fence type, and it's very easy to suddenly sort of turn against something or forget something and always think the grass is always greener, but so I'm really pleased for him, and I'm hoping actually they bring the best out of each other. Like you score, I score, you score, I score, and between the two of them, we'll get a successful. It won't be a partnership. I don't think we're going to see them together, but dovetailing, giving goals at the right time. I think we
might occasionally, right? But I mean, it's a great thing to have. Do you know, I was thinking the other day about. I was watching a bit of the classic Arsenal a couple of weeks back, and in particular around the time of Wanku Kanu, who was sat there the entire time when we had Thierry Henry and Dennis Bergkamp, and he was something of a hybrid between the two. He had a little bit of the one and a little bit of the other. And just like to be able to have somebody like him and his goal scoring record and his ability that would come off the bench or just come into the team. And that's where you sort of want to be, right? And with now, obviously, it's different. We don't play with two distinct strikers in the way that we did then. But nonetheless, having players the quality of both Havertz and Gyokeres is absolutely necessary. And having somebody who can be a bit more rotational, which was the way that Kanu was. He wasn't strictly a bench player. He wasn't like when we signed Kabi Diawara, or he was somebody who drifted in and out. And similarly, after Kanu, there was Sylvain Wiltord, very similarly as well. But sometimes he'd play on the right or play on the left as well. And again, Havertz gives you that. Havertz can give you I can go and play attacking midfield or play at a kind of 8 or whatever. So I think that's really exciting, and I think Kai could have a really big season, and I think it's also going to be helpful to Kai in his performances that he doesn't necessarily have to be 9 week in, week out as well, and we don't have to push him to the limit. So yeah, for me personally, I'm really excited for what Kai could do this season. I think he could have a really big year, and I think we need him to have a really good year.
Yeah, indeed, and look, even Arteta alluded to it, talking about Kai, he said, and talking about, he said, the goal he scored, I think, was top as well. So everybody raising the level of everybody else, is really going to help us, because at that level we're going to need our very best from everybody. And I think part of what we're building here is that it's sort of that 2 players for each position and 2 high quality players for each position, and either anyone could start, and just as long as you keep the core of the team or that structure, then it shouldn't unbalance the team. Or the other thing is you very different types of players. Kai is very different to Gyokeres, and I'll touch on that in a bit later. Like Noni's different to Saka or to Martinelli, and so on. Like Marino's different to Rice or Zubimendi, or Odegaard and Waneri are different, and Dalman's different. So it just leads to that we're building this squad that is very, very strong, very deep, but also provides so many different options that how the opposition are going to know what the hell we're going to do, and depending on game state, we can deploy different sides, different faces. So I think that's really really exciting to look forward to as the season comes. So and look, in terms of low light, I don't think there were anything. Obviously, there's still areas we can improve. The left hand side being one of them, but nothing major. Yeah, if you have to pick anything, would have liked Ethan to score his penalty. But you always want them to score their penalties. You don't like anyone to miss, even though it's meaningless. It would have been nice, and then so yeah, nothing really low light. And I'm assuming you didn't really have any low lights from yesterday.
Not from yesterday. No, I didn't watch enough of it for it, to be honest. And from Wednesday, I mean, probably, overall sort of fluency. I thought Martinelli flattered to deceive quite a bit. It was probably my overall low light from that game. Because actually I thought he had quite a lot of opportunities, and he was a bit lacklustre, unfortunately, in his end product, as is so often the criticism of when he doesn't have his good games. So he was a bit frustrating. But, it also feels a bit harsh to single him out in a game that, as I've said, I don't think we were massively fluent in overall. But yeah,
Indeed. So look, yesterday's squad, as you said, yesterday's team was strong. I think it's close. I don't think it is exact. It might not be the starting 11. It was. I loved seeing Calafiori at left back, Timber at right back. You'd see then big Gabby starting, and that was good. So that first choice midfield, Gyokeres starts again. So yeah, look, a pretty strong team, and as you said, pretty close, maybe 9 out of the 11. That starts against Man United. One thing, no Leo on the bench. Is he injured, or is he injured transfer protection injured? So interesting to see what happens with Leo. But I think we're all expecting that, given Man United the weekend, given where the build up of pre-season, I think we're all expecting a pretty strong lineup.
I think that's the matchday squad, right? I think the matchday squad remains the same. I think probably, I'm more than likely expecting Calafiori comes out for MLS. And then maybe has a look at somewhere else. But that's probably the only one that stands out to me to get to what I think is the strongest lineup for that game.
No, indeed. So, look, I mean, in terms of overall thoughts on the game, and you've mentioned a few things during your highlights and the performance. I mean, my reflection is like from the Spuds game in Hong Kong and the Villarreal game, it was clear we didn't play great. And there was still some of the familiar issues that frustrated fans and caused a little bit of concern. And I think rightly so to a point. You do want to see some sort of progression during pre-season. You do want to see some shoots of positivity there. And I think as we said in the last pod, the results don't matter, but the performances do, and we clearly didn't perform that great. But then you've got a caveat, the playing conditions, the fitness levels, new team members, in-game effort, they're playing at 80, 90%, team formations, lineups, which all together mean, as you said, you're going to get disjointed and suboptimal performances. And when you marry that up with a fan base that is very on the edge and sensitive to any sense of failure or lack of progression, in a timescale that they wish, or positive change, then you can lose a bit of sense of perspective, a bit. You can overreact a bit, and there was I think a bit of overreaction, not so much after the Tottenham game, but after the Villarreal game. I think we were expecting more. But what yesterday's game showed me, and what I really liked, were where all those things that have been worked on in isolation, either during preseason games or in training, started to come together. So that's why I asked you about the Villarreal and the highlights and stuff like that, or what you saw here, what you saw there. Where fitness levels are improving, we're closer to a proper, coherent, well-balanced best 11 playing together. Combinations started to look good. Players were showing glimpses of what we brought them in for and what they can offer, and we showed a little leg in terms of our evolving playing style, where we're a bit more direct. Our midfield is perma-shifting, moving. There's a midfield trio who are moving around. We've got two big units up front who will run and fight and run and score goals. And so that's what preseason is about. It's you lead up to this point where you get those little bits in little games to then peak at the right time, or to start to peak, and building up towards the season, being as ready as possible for when that season starts, and you don't want to put everything on display, but you just want to sort of start to piece it together. So I think this was a good reminder that our base is very good. We have very good players. We have now improved upon that base.
Yeah,
better players. More, and like I said, more variety, more options, more opportunity, and we've got opportunity to get better. And when teams give us space to exploit, my God, we take advantage of that, and we will punish us. So look, we have things to improve upon. Our left-hand side, we need to work on. We need to still work on unlocking well-drilled defences, but that's what yesterday meant to me.
There's a mentality thing as well, though, I think, and I think that sometimes you can, and the likes of Big G actually against Villarreal probably makes me think about it. He didn't seem to be in that sort of animalistic mode, where he wants to win everything, he wants to block everything or whatever. He just seemed a little bit off it, sort of mentally. I think actually for a lot of the big players, the likes of this game being so close to the season, I think probably would have been a bit of a difference maker. It's a Saturday game. It's almost the 3:00. It feels like, right, let's go out and do these now, and knowing that Bilbao as well, again, moving closer, have a strong side out, you need to go out and you just need to go and do the business against these as if it's Man United the next week. And I think, the fact that they know this is the last one probably makes a little bit of a difference. Again, first one back from the flight back in, and in London with Villarreal and a little bit more of a disjointed team. It's not just about the players that you've got out there and the combinations and so on, but I think also just the mentality as well. It doesn't feel, and I thought the Spurs game was kind of similar as well, and with the line and whatever. It's a bit like, that mentality wise, we probably just weren't quite there, and it makes a huge difference because this team, where it's grown to, and after the likes of last season, especially last season with the big games that we had, is a team I think that thrives upon the pressure and the additional pressure and that kind of big match feel. And it will be like that as soon as we're back in the Premier League. But it's not there for the friendlies, right? And that takes a percentage off. And again, it's a reason why you don't judge too heavily on the friendlies. You have a look at systems, combinations, little bits and bobs, but you can't take too much out of it because it's not that exciting for some of these boys. You've been there and done it. And it's a bit more exciting for some of the new lads, for sure. And I will say Gyokeres at times against Villarreal looked quite frustrated because you could tell he really wanted to score. There's a point that I really liked actually where he took it off the toes of Saka, and Saka definitely, I think, had a nice inside of his left foot finish that he could have put through, and Gyokeres just absolutely steams through to snatch at it on his right. But you could see him he had that little bit of he's a number 9 going, I just want a goal, just bugger off, all right? Don't matter what else happens in this game, I want a goal, and it was kind of nice to see, because you don't want it all season, but you're quite happy to see it in that game, and for him to be a bit desperate. So hence lovely to see him get his goal yesterday, and people said he couldn't header and all that kind of stuff. But he gets that with his movement. He didn't need to go through an aerial duel. He just pulled himself away from the defender and heads it home with decent technique. But I think that for me is one of my main takeaways, is to go, I think this team is a different beast now, and actually will probably be somewhat less excited. This isn't a. And again, we've talked about how we haven't had massive ceiling raisers come in over the summer. We've had a tidy bunch of players, some of whom might prove to be ceiling raisers at some point, but nobody that's, this isn't like when Gabby and Zinchenko came in and then we went out and caned Sevilla. Something 6-0 or whatever stupid it was, because there was this excitement around a bunch of players, I think, and an excitement for the season. I think this is a bit more of a team now that are like, look, this is a bit of a routine summer. Let's get ourselves fit. Let's go in and then let's start winning games properly. And I think that does, kind of change almost what you do in the pre-seasons. And if you look at the likes of City's pre-seasons over the last few years, they never have a decent pre-season. They always look pretty naff. We've beaten them pre-season. They look a bit rubbish, and they're obviously a bit of a slow starting team sometimes as well in the league. But I think we're in that kind of mode where the players now are a bit like, look, we just get ourselves through fit. We do the odd bit. We check out what some of these new boys look like alongside us. It's their time. And then we got ourselves ready to, go out and beat teams properly. So, and that mentality makes a massive difference. It changes the whole performance levels. So, as you say, nice to take away some of the highlights. I think there've been some really lovely ones throughout the pre-season. A little bit gutting to lose to Spurs, even though it's a friendly, just because it is a bit gutting, isn't it? You don't like losing to Spurs. But otherwise, everything else has just been, I've taken a lot away from it that I've really enjoyed. So,
But I think, just touching on some of the points there, what we're trying to build as well. I think last year has really scarred Arteta. So in terms of our squad that we're building, so you just look at the bench that we can now put out versus that bench that we put out against PSG, where we had a kindergarten basically being a bunch of subs. We are. It's about that depth. It's about players in each position. It's about being able to interchange, but you're interchanging with quality. And okay, if one person goes down, great. There's someone who can step up, and the difference shouldn't be so great. And there's and in terms of the preseason stuff, when you're taking off half a team, bringing another half a team on, it's not going to be the same. So that's why I said yesterday was all about bringing little bits of those bits together in one coherent unit, and that doesn't happen without trying different things over different time to see how it goes. So again, I think it was just a bit of a step back and say, okay, let's not get too, and I'm not going to get too overexcited about yesterday either, but you can just see the positive progression. You can see more right where we're going, who we are, and yet it's a reminder, and it gives you a positive sense. So again, a good thing to come out of yesterday is the positivity come out of it. You don't want to go into a season with the fans a bit down and you lost this and all the rest of it, even though meaningless. You want to go into the season right on a high. And look, we do have to caveat a bit about Athletic Bilbao in terms of they haven't won a game all pre-season. Okay, so they did have a strong team, but they didn't really offer much going forward, and the only chances they had were the ones we created for them by giving the ball away. Defended okay in the mid block, low block defending, depending on game state, but they did give us a ton of space behind the fullbacks, especially in the first half, and we did exploit that. And look, they've lost all 5 games in pre-season. I was looking this up, including a weird double header against Liverpool on the 4th of August. So they played Liverpool twice in one evening at Anfield, and with different
lineups, presumably. Was it?
Well, I couldn't. I said, "Is there a mistake? Is this like an error on this website with the date?" No. And then I looked at the highlights. Yeah, and it's a completely different 11 per game.
Yeah.
But what was interesting, the manager, the athletic manager, Ernesto Valverde, said this was the hardest game we have played in this pre-season. I didn't think we will see a level this high already, but they are simply outstanding today. Liverpool is difficult also, but this is another level. So interesting to get that sort of feedback, and so maybe it was more a case of we just made them look bad rather than them being actually bad. So so again, another positive take, and given what happened, I don't know if you saw anything of the Charity Shield today this afternoon.
I didn't, but I was following it on the text on BBC, and it was I was quite enjoying that. So yeah, that's I see that they managed to pull off the penalty win, right? Palace
did. So yeah, and look, they could have won. The guy who I didn't really watch it. I saw the penalties because I managed to get home. I was out and I managed to get home for the penalties. But apparently the guy who scored the winning penalty had a great chance, and at the end. The PGMOL were doing their usual, trying to help Liverpool as much as possible to win the match, but Palace survived and went on to win. So Liverpool. Just touching on Liverpool will be attacking wise be as good, if not better than ever. But I think they're going to be shaky at the back, a bit shaky in midfield. So they've
only got 3 senior centre halves. Is one of the things that I saw the other day, which is quite an interesting thing. I think they're a lot more open to injuries than we are by a mile. And I must admit, I don't know all of their squad depth as well. But certainly, when I look through that squad, I think there's a degree of feeling, for me at least, anyway, that I'm going. First 11 is staggeringly good.
Yeah,
it just is. And they've got depth in a couple of positions, but there's a bit of unproven. There's a few lads there that are obviously new to them anyway that are going at that start 11 that we think are going to be really good based on what they've done elsewhere. But Frimpong's going to be a really interesting one. He's fantastic going forward.
He's a winger playing.
I mean, when he was at Celtic, Celtic, he was exposed on a regular basis. I used to watch a fair bit of him then, and I know he's progressed and he's a better player now than he was necessarily at Celtic. But I think he's renowned for his attacking play, not really for his defensive play. Gyökeres, I think as well is not massively dissimilar. And then you've got the 2 boys at centre. I mean, Matip and Van Dijk are phenomenal, right? Both brilliant players, but Van Dijk looked a bit rusty at times last year towards the end of last season, and both him and Matip are getting on a bit now, and there is a concern there that if either of them go down and you've got Kwanzaa behind and that's it.
No, he went, didn't Kwanzaa, who went to Leverkusen? I think it was Kwanzaa, wasn't it Kwanzaa? They stayed. I think Kwanzaa. One of them went to Leverkusen. Yeah, Konate played today, so I think Kwanzaa went. It was one of those that they paid.
Yeah, sorry, it's Konate that's left behind, isn't it? Yeah. You're right. But
he's a bit injury prone. Van Dijk is about 45. So again, he said, so look, they're going to attack well, and all the rest of it. But I think they'll be a bit vulnerable, potentially in defence anyway. So anyway, we'll see. But it was just interesting that the manager sort of provided that comment. And again, caveats, pre-season, yada yada yada. But still,
they could have a phenomenal season still. And I think their signings seem really intelligent. And Havertz, I mean, I think he'll be phenomenal to watch. I'm gutted that they've got him because he's the one I think that was one of my dream signings for the Arsenal potentially. So, and we were never even mentioned, so I never entertained it. But he just looks like such a player. But I think certainly, I look at their squad and go on a squad basis. I think we might have, if they get a bit of bad luck, if they get the luck we had last season, I think they've got real trouble. Because I don't think they can. Now, if you take out their version of Odegaard and Saka, which is Salah and Havertz, I guess, and you take out their Gabriel, and you give them a season of that amount of just disjointedness, I think they're really struggling at that point, right? Last season, they got fortunate, and it is one of those. We got fortunate in previous seasons, so and we didn't have the squad, I think, to be able to deal with it. Probably last season was the best squad. I mean, God, I think we did pretty well come second, and we were lucky actually that there was a bit of a gulf behind us, and City had a bad year and whatever. But certainly, I think they would be in for a difficult time if they get any injuries. So at the same time, if they manage to go through last season and it's not a fluke and they just stay fit, I mean, that's a hell of a team. So I'm really looking forward to this season. I think as well, seeing what City are like, again, a couple of new signings, a little bit more bedded in time for some of those guys that are there. See how they get on with Haaland's fitness. See how they get on without De Bruyne. I mean, they effectively had that last season. And I do think he was, they no longer have that moment where De Bruyne or Mahrez catch fire at the end of a season, which has been such a feature of their seasons for about 4 years running, right? So that's going to be interesting. But they might become a bit of a different beast as well to what they have been previously. And again, I expect Chelsea to be improved. So, that top four this season, I think is going to be very, very fun to watch.
But also in terms of Man City, look, Rodri already injured. Into the new season. Look, he's just come back, and obviously you're more susceptible to injury once you come back from a big injury. But teams like Chelsea and Man City, the Club World Cup, what an impact that's going to have. Colwell for
it's a big
Chelsea.
player at that age, right? Once you start picking up regular injuries at 29 and 30, it tends to be a problem, and that's what they've had with De Bruyne for a bunch of years. And once they couldn't rely on him, it was becoming more of an issue for them. And hope maybe and from a person to person level, hopefully he's all right and he recovers and he gets to be a world class footballer again.
Yeah, but
from an Arsenal fan point of view, it's interesting to watch, and you might want to see less of him on the football field than somebody else, right?
Exactly. So, well, look, back to bring it back to Arsenal and yesterday's game, but pre-season in general. But a lot about what we saw from yesterday. You talk about Havertz being a very clever player and being, that player that'd be great, and maybe is a difference maker or additional difference maker to Liverpool. Zubimendi, he is so good. I could watch him all day. So calm, so smooth. Just always seems to be available to receive the ball. He defends better than I expected, plays further forward than I expected. He's always probing, looking to play first-time passes, getting us forward quicker. He had that lovely cross for the Gyokeres header first time. He's going to be so important to us this season. And I heard this on another pod, the North Bank pod, and it said exactly what I thought, was that I'm already worried about him getting injured. I cannot wait to see more of him. In just seeing him yesterday on the pitch is just sort of like just such a joy to watch. And it's sort of, I don't know if I haven't seen anyone make this comparison, so maybe I'm wildly off the mark. But when Santi Cazorla was playing a bit deeper in that position, and just that smart player, 2-footed, playing the ball, just nipping in, and you just love to see him on the pitch. And Zubimendi is just so he is going. He's going to go under the radar. He's been under the radar because all the talk has been about Gyokeres. He is going to be the difference maker for us next season. He's going to be huge, and the way he combined yesterday with Rice and Odegaard was really interesting to see. And him and Rice were swapping positions; they were dovetailing. Rice would go back, pick up the ball, and then Zubimendi would move forward, and then vice versa. Picking up the ball from centre backs, one deep, one weak. So it was just watching it, and I had to. If I just did something all game, it would just be watching him. And if they did that player cam thing anymore, so good. I don't know how much you picked up from your highlights or from what you've seen of him so far, but he's really turning into my favourite player very, very quickly.
Yeah, did he play much with Odegaard? I don't know whether there was much of a crossover with. I know certainly he did a lot with Marino, but I don't know he's at Real Sociedad, but I don't think he really made much of his impact until sort of 2018, 2019 at the earliest, did he?
No, he didn't. But even then, the way Sociedad play, and maybe this give a false impression of what sort of play he is, and maybe we should watch more of how he plays for Spain, and like how he did in the Nations League final against Portugal, or how he played when he came off of Rodri against England in the Euro League final. That's the Zubimendi we're getting, and a steal at whatever we paid for him, based on I'm going over the top based on one friendly performance, but bloody hell, I urge anyone just to pay attention. He's stunning.
Oh, they did play a little bit together actually.
Yeah.
So it turns out they played about 10 games together, so probably not a great deal, but nonetheless, I mean, turning out to be a little bit of a talent farm actually. So. Sociedad, isn't it, really? A little bit of a nice link up for us. There's been, we've got 3 former. I think he played with Nacho Monreal at the time. He went in retirement over there. And obviously Arteta's got his history with him as well, hasn't he? Maybe just be nice to add one more former Sociedad player.
Yes, we'll see. We'll see. Maybe
it's
next
year. It's not going to be the case, but it would be nice.
So, what have you had any thoughts? Have you paid much attention to him pre-season? Anything you've picked up?
Yeah, I mean, he looks tidy, right? Everything I've seen he seems to just have that innate ability and understanding of the game, and really nice kind of tactical nous for a guy who's just come into the team. positionally very good, very comfortable, good little distributor. And I'm super interested in watching him. He's got that sort of probing quality to him, which we want out of any of our midfielders. But he does so very tidily and very intelligently. It doesn't seem to be, we're not talking Aaron Ramsey's probing where it's, I'm just going to, every ball I play is going to be a through ball and we'll see if one of them out of the 10 works. And love the boy, but that was what it was like. And he's got this kind of measured approach, but I really enjoy him. So yeah, yesterday, from what I saw, quite positive in terms of those relationships. And that's all it is now, right? It's building relationships with the rest of the guys around him, so that he can be in a position to really be the kind of fulcrum of that midfield. And it's great, but also having options there too. Norgard played there at the against Villarreal and has got a very different set of qualities, but was fun to watch as well. So 6 is looking really strong. Really strong, and I think we can. Midfield in general just looks like it's in a fantastic place going into this season, and him at the heart of it. I think we've got a real player there, and I think that's the most obvious upgrade from the summer, right? Everybody else is upgrades for backups, or a little bit of competition, or gives a lot of positives. Gyökeres probably is the one where it might be gives us a proper 9, but again, I think he's got a challenge on his hands to get that number 9 off Kai Havertz. But he's the one where you look at it and just go 100%. That's a better footballer than we've had in that position for several seasons, with maybe the exception of Declan Rice playing there. But he's again a different player, and he allows Declan Rice to play at that LCM where we know he's been. Last season he had his best season for the Arsenal.
But then they're swapping, so they interchange a bit. But also, it allows Odegaard to be further forward. So Odegaard isn't the one picking up the ball from the centre backs, looking for Odegaard ahead of him, sort of thing. So all of a sudden, everything is just further forward. Everyone's in front of the ball, not behind the ball, and he just allows us to play quicker and stuff. So I think he is going to be, and that's why we saw a bit of what to expect, and that's it. But great, 45 minutes or whatever it is, 90 minutes, whatever it was yesterday. Fine, you don't have to do it all pre-season. Yesterday was the time to put it to get it on show. And it's not going to be any surprise to Amorim how we expect to play. He's good. All these people know how everyone plays. So, but just to see that and how we interchange, and it feels like him and Rice have been playing together for forever. The way they work. So that was really, really nice to see. So
another impression to see him in the flesh, completely unrelated to his footballing ability, exact opposite of Max Dowman. Can't understand how that guy's 6 foot. He just has, I think it's just something about, he's a Spanish metronome type, and you just like, well, obviously he's 5'7", isn't he? Like, he can't actually be 6 foot. He doesn't look small, but at the same time, I can't imagine the fella, but you just don't quite believe that he's 6 foot.
If you call him diminutive, if you call him diminutive, he's 6 foot short.
It just doesn't sit right with me that he's 6 foot. It just doesn't, but he is apparently. So but he doesn't look physically lacking or anything like that, and he doesn't look like one of those. You do think of the Spanish metronome as being all technique and not necessarily the greatest athletic ability, right? And whereas actually, he looks like he's reasonably athletic. It's not his standout feature, but he looks like he's able to get around, and he has enough about him.
But he's going to be that classic. The first yard is in his head. He's going to know where to stand, where to be. He doesn't have to be athletic. He's going to be just timing. His game's around timing. So everything about his game is timing. So I think he's a great addition. And look, another addition that he had yesterday that made a mark was Gyokeres. Now, one observation I had, and I was again watching this when I wasn't watching Zubimendi, is that it's going to be interesting for us as fans, not just the team, but getting used to a centre forward who isn't involved a great deal in our build-up or in our general play, doesn't come looking for the ball like Havertz does, dropping into midfield. Gyokeres plays on the shoulder of the defender or plays across the front line, running in the channels. And so he may not always be a lot involved. And I don't know how, as fans, are going to be frustrated. Why aren't we getting him more involved? But what he does do is occupy defenders, makes those runs, pulls them about, and just makes their lives difficult. So if the ball isn't going to him, he's creating space for others, which, again, we didn't have because Havertz would drop deep. So fine, you're clogging up midfield, and the defender goes, "Oh, fine, I'll just let you go. I'm just going to hold my place." Or ball goes out to Saka, right? Everyone goes out and defends against Saka and stuff. So him having there is just going to transform that the space that we have and the availability. And he was much better in terms of fitness and being available. And by being available, especially for the header. So against Villarreal, one thing I picked up was we were getting into positions and crossing, but the cross would always be cut out by the first defender. And Gyokeres was behind the first defender waiting for the cross. Whereas you saw yesterday, he made that superb run across the defender and actually did a cracking header. And you said, who said he couldn't header? So just a little tweak in that. So don't stand behind, get ahead, get in front, or a reminder to do that made the difference.
He has those movement instincts. It's the same movement instinct that you need. So people have talked about his ability to get across the defender and counter-attacking and so on. But it's the same instinct to movement that you need and the same eagerness that you need to get on the ball and to be able to affect the game that you want out of a striker when they're doing it largely from the 18-yard box. But ultimately what we're going to and we have a bunch of really good individual coaches at the club. That's one of Arteta's strengths as a manager, is largely the fact that he actually was very much an individual coach and works a lot with the players. And you've got a bunch of guys, I'm sure, that will work with him to be able to take, those kind of instincts that he's shown in a different context to sporting a bit more, to be able to use them in this way now. I have no doubt that the lad's got that. And that was lovely movement to just move himself into exactly where he needs to be for that goal. And if you can do that on the regular, and you can get across the defender, that's what we've needed. Kai's not bad at it, but he's not brilliant at it. Marino sort of half learnt it last season, but he's not the most mobile to be able to do it. Is actually the biggest problem he has. He hasn't got that quick burst. This guy's got the burst and he's got the instinct, and we just need to make it that's his priority. And if we're in that position where there's a clogged up area, he needs to be using that movement to be able to get himself into those positions where he's receiving the ball in the right way. But I think we've got the ability to do that, and there's going to be a period of adjustment for him and players around him, and they're just going to work out what are the things that work for them. Players get there, right? It's it's only the same way as understanding where an Anelka or the way that Dennis Bergkamp wants the ball into feet, and then the way that on the other end he wants to then give it to an Anelka in a bit of space because he does the damage running onto it and whatever. We've seen this over the years with a bunch of different players. Give the ball to Van Persie in the air because he likes to strike it in the air most of the time. Whatever. Players learn these things, and the players around them, they get those relationships. They understand how best to be able to feed the players around them, and that's what's going to happen with Viktor Gyökeres, I'm sure. But it's exciting. It's exciting to watch what's starting to develop there. And over the next few weeks, you just want to see us get enough decent performances out of it that we pick up the points whilst developing those relationships, because there's still going to be more to go. But certainly, as you said earlier, with Zubi, it feels like it's almost there already. But that seems to be the type of fella he is, right?
But it's just going to be interesting just to see it, because we have not seen it in a while. We always have these centre forwards that come deep looking for the ball. So it's going to be, again, getting used to that and saying, oh yeah, that's what a centre forward does. That's the sort of run they make. That's where they go. So again, another, along with Zubimendi, seeing his movement and what he does is.
It's been a long time, hasn't it? Because even to be honest, the strikers that we've had before, Aubameyang did a lot of dropping out to the left. He sort of always enjoyed that element of play and the try and replicate Henry just not being anywhere near as good at it. But he was a fantastic striker for us, but he didn't really do. He didn't really score those kind of goals so much. Lacazette was never that player. He was a back to goal man. Half the time he received the ball in the box, he was in the Miles Lewis Skelly position and then looking to turn, and it either skewed wide or went down the throat of the keeper. And then before that, it's just been a long time. Really, we haven't had somebody I don't think has been a proper penalty box merchant since Van Persie, and that wasn't the only part of his game, but at his peak, he really understood how to manoeuvre and how to put away from defenders and how to be able to give himself that beating of the player. And because it wasn't even Giroud's game particularly, he was a bit more around. So it's been such a long time to see it, and to see one who also as well, Christ, a Burley 9 type like that with the kind of explosion that he's got. That's been a hell of a long time at the Arsenal. So it's really exciting to see. I'm looking forward to it a lot.
See what happens. So another one that he's not new to the team, but it feels like it every time he plays. Is Calafiori? I said I was really pleased to see him start the game yesterday, playing at left back, I just love seeing him on the pitch. He just offers us something different, a little bit chaotic, unstructured. Again, another of these ones great in another. We got options at left back, but he's so different to MLS, and he seems to be allowed to roam and do what he wants. So, but
he offers something Italian, doesn't he, Mr. Tabarelli? That's the still, yeah. You know, I get you.
And look, he will be vulnerable defensively at times. So again, it's horses for courses when you bring him on. But he is a top talent. When we bought him, a lot of Italian clubs wanted him, and he decided to come to the Arsenal, and if he stays fit, he can be our wild card. Because again, we don't know what to expect for him. So how the opposition gonna expect? How do you mark him? In terms of MLS is one that sits a bit deeper, ball at his feet, behind the ball, maybe a bit less attacking, and not so much an open, not so much of an attacking threat. But Calafiori, he makes runs inside, outside. He finds himself in shooting positions like yesterday, and I think he should have gotten target, but it was sort of very similar in a way to the area where he was against Man City. And we saw the runs he made. He scored the goal against Wolves. He scored that fantastic goal against PSV where he ran from left back to right wing to slot it past, but also his movement creates space for Nelly. And so, again, an exciting option to have if and as and when we need it. And again, horses for courses, we adapt to the team that we're playing, and we adapt our style depending who's in. So maybe he plays, but then Norgard plays, to counteract that type of thing, or a Timber plays. So therefore, the defensive three sort of moves over a bit, and we become a back three, and Calafiori's our roaming left back, but much more attractive than Zinchenko in more ways than one. So yeah, I don't know. How do you feel about our? Just as long as he stays fit, that's the one thing we want him to stay fit.
It's fun, and I mean it plugs into the same thing. I think I'm excited about across the team for the season, which is there are some battles for some of these shirts. Like who the hell's going to be right back? When you've got Julian Timber and Ben White have very rarely been available at the same times. So them two both going into a season fit. Oh, that is a very tasty battle between the two of them. Timber then also gives you the option of going out to left, where you've got MLS, who had such a fantastic season, and I think is very much the incumbent at the moment, and then Calafiori. And then, similarly, you've got it probably at left wing, you've probably got a bit of a battle on your hands there with Noni coming in. Is he going to get more of an option there, Wanyeri, Martinelli? And then up front. But, Calafiori, I think, is part of that. I think that's why I totally agree with you. He's an element of chaos. He's a bit different. He offers something that very few left backs do, to be completely frank. I think he could be a real player for us. I really like a lot of things about him. The difficulty I have is that I like so much about MLS. MLS is just my kind of player. He just really is. He just the cuteness and the ability to just win fouls all over the gaff on a consistent basis, and the chillness of him is something that I find mesmerising as a footballer. But Calafiori is definitely the fact he's got that option. He could be a dominant, fantastic left back. It's just we'll see. And that battle as part of that wider context of real. The competition is not because we've got somebody weak in the majority of those positions. Maybe Martinelli's the one where the competition is a bit of that was a biggest competition last season, I thought, as well, is a question of who's going to rise to the top at left back. With the other positions, it's super, super competitive because there is real quality and options in each of those positions. And left back is probably the most, I think right back's probably the most absolutely fascinating for me. Left back's that second one for me as well. Seeing who gets game time in different contexts.
Again, you're right. I think it's different contexts. I think we might protect MLS a bit this season. I think we may take him out the fire line a bit more. I don't think he's going to be nailed on at left back all the time. I think it may be that second season syndrome and stuff, and people have found him out.
I so don't believe that in any way, shape, or form, mate.
I don't know. We'll see.
I mean, he was the best player on the pitch against Villarreal again. He was like, for me at least, anyway. He looks so complete to me.
We can't. We can't.
He's going to be on 100 England caps by the time he's about 25, mate.
But again, we're going to have to protect us into. We can't be playing all the players all the time. So
no, of course. And I agree. And I think genuinely, if Calafiori stays fit, I think he'd have played a lot more last season. I think we would have seen that horses for courses thing going on, and that's why it's fascinating. But I mean, I do think the default mode of the guy who fits with what we do is MLS for me. But I'm not averse to Calafiori growing as a player. I think as well he'll get more time at left centre back potentially. I think we will see more rotation around the squad as a whole. I think that's what we're ready for, and to be able to go trust some boys in more game time in different contexts. And I think we will definitely see that.
And I think maybe it's pods of players. So if Calafiori plays, then two other players have to play to either match his skill set or benefit from his skill set, or to counter his weaknesses by having him. So again, we may be a bit more defensively vulnerable with Calafiori. So therefore, you're right. I think we play Timber because he's more solid defensively versus Ben White, who can be exposed over the top behind him, sort of thing. So I think you will see if one player plays, so does this other player, and I think we're going to see a lot more of that type of stuff, just to balance things out. So again, you get these pods of players or groups.
I think that makes a lot of sense. It's not so much that you've got a first and a second 11. It's more that you've got as you say, they're interchangeable parts a little bit, and you bring guys in that, as you say, work together and balance the team. And we haven't had that opportunity, I don't think, before, but now we've definitely got to that stage.
You mentioned the Timber. I'll move on to Timber because again, it was good to see him play, get some minutes, get some decent minutes. With Timber, I think it's an easy decision if I have to choose between Timber and White. White bugs me a bit, but Timber for me.
You don't, mate. I'm sorry. You can't be putting shade on Ben White. He has been one of the best right backs in the Premier League for 3-4 seasons. For 3 seasons that he's played there. He is top class. But I must admit, I watched Timber a lot last season. I was thinking, how the hell's Ben White going to get back in? Because he is bloody good.
Yeah, I do. Okay, again, it depends what you want. Timber is a better defender. Okay, I think Ben White can be exposed over the top.
But Ben White is not a bad defender. That's the thing. We're not talking TAA here. And we're not even talking Calafiori, where Calafiori's problem is he gets turned too easily for me. Like, he has a real issue against a decent winger, I think. But
it's the thing that everyone loves about Ben White when he's mocking opposition or his couldn't give a shit attitude against opposition and stuff, and dealing with the opposition and winding them up, and that's what I love it. But I also sometimes get a sense that he can sometimes come across as a bit casual in what he does. So you see him elements, you get a crossing, or I don't know. Just sometimes when he's in certain situations, he just comes across as a bit casual, and maybe, and also that doesn't care because he'll make mistakes and whatever. And part of being a footballer is that you cannot dwell on the mistakes you made. But it feels like he doesn't give a shit, and I do want a sense of, oh, bloody hell, But I never get that sense from him. And so is that balance.
I think he's very driven. I don't know. I just think the way he articulates that is very different. I mean, personally, I sort of love to see. I'm the opposite. I adore. I mean, I've said for years, I miss the languid footballer. There's just not enough, and most of them are like your 10s and stuff that I feel are just, these days.
He's a languid defender.
They're all a bit busy, but I love a languid footballer, and I think he's just got, he's got absolute aloof languid, I can do this, I can do this all about him. But he busts a gut, at times. Like, there is times that man is blowing and he's full effort, and I think he's a better defender than people give him credit for as well a lot of the time. I think, again, we ask him to do that triumvirate with Saka and Odegaard, and that does leave him exposed more so than he as a player, I think, does get exposed. The guy played centre-half for us really well in our first season of having a good centre-half partnership again. And he won one defence really well against a winger. The only issue he does have, as you say, is
not as good as Timber, though.
Not as good as Timber, but I think Timber's the best one-on-one defender we've got in that position in the wide channel. He's a phenomenal one-on-one defender. But he is Ben White then does give you a lot more polish going forward, and he gives you a lot more imagination and cuteness in that, specifically when we're up against those deep defences. He gives you that ability to be able to, he can pick a pass, he'll be a little bit more, what can I do in this situation? Timber feels a little more one-dimensional there. He's not bad going forward, Timber, by any stretch of the imagination. He's had some really good games going forward, but I think he isn't as cute. He isn't as intelligent in that position. He isn't as creative. He doesn't feel like he's doing as much probing. It feels like he's looking for a much more simple overlap and run into the box. And actually, funnily enough, he can be quite chaotic in that position. He can look to go and take on a man in a way that Ben probably wouldn't. But I think certainly for me, that right side has always looked better with Ben White when he's in terms of going forward. But there's a hell of a lot. I mean, that's the thing. That competition is Christ on a bike. That is somewhere where they are going to push each other, I think, and that's what you really hope out of all these, is that they just all push each other.
Well, that's one thing. You for sure, Ben White is going to be. It's an aesthetics thing, and it's a personal preference thing. So and these are margins. We're not talking, I think he's shit and all the rest of it. It's just a feeling I get and whatever, but full confidence in him, and it's just so I'm not doubting any. And you're right. I think you're right. He is massively driven, and he will be he'll be working his nuts off. Like he gives a shit. Whether we just know he doesn't look like he gives a shit.
And he saw Timber last season, and he knows he's got to work for that shirt. He knows he's really got to work for that shirt. So that, I mean, I genuinely think that's so fascinating, because I think the level of quality from the two is different even to MLS and Calafiori, where you've got two guys that we hope are going to continue to get better and are still relatively new. These two,
and young. You forget Calafiori's 22. He's young. He's like our second youngest, third youngest, whatever player in the.
Yeah, he just looks like he was playing alongside Palamadini, doesn't he?
Yeah.
But I think certainly for me, when I look at those two, at Ben White and Julian Timber, it feels like we might have two of the most complete right backs two of the most complete right backs in the world. Not the two, but they're two of them. If you
combine them together. Oh man, that would be so good.
Yeah, but you talk about two guys who could easily be starting for England and Holland at right back, the two of them, and that's the kind of quality that you're in, where having those two face off for a jersey. And the fortunate thing is they can both fill in elsewhere. Ben White can fill in at centre half. He doesn't need to, I don't think, because going to the next geezer that we'll probably talk about, I think we'll probably end up talking about him. But he's got the ability to fit in at centre half, and then you've got Timber's got the ability to fit in everywhere on the back line. So there'll hopefully be enough minutes to go around, but one of them is going to emerge as being the guy that we go to in the clutch games, and I don't know which one it is yet. And that I think is really fascinating.
It will. Yeah, there's something that Clive on the Arsenal Vision podcast says, that the team finds itself, or the team will present itself over the season, and you'll work out what's your strongest 11, but for the game ahead.
And I think with the two of them, it might not be, and I think it's why it's quite interesting for me as well. It might not be as much about their performances, and it might be more about what they do for the rest of the team and the players around them. Because at the moment, that's the bit that I think White has. Timber and Odegaard just don't. Timber and Saka, sorry, I should say, and Odegaard don't between them have that same triumvirate effect that you get with Ben White. And that is something I'm sure they can work on. I think Timber's got the footballing ability to be able to do it, but it's something very specific about how Ben White does it, where it just feels like we're a more potent threat on that right, and we get a little bit more out of it. And he exploits the space that you get when you've got guys trying to double up on two geezers on the same side. He knows how to be able to play around that, and that's what they've got to probably work on a bit with Timber for me, I think. But we'll see what happens.
I guess, well, with that, I don't know which way to go in this, but again, this now, what difference does Zubimendi make now that Odegaard may be further forward, and what difference does Gyokeres make? So is that triangle, that triumvirate between White, Odegaard, and Saka now so important? Is it used to be basically our prime attacking option down the right hand side. Now it's like, well, actually, we've got different players in place offering different things. And I'll quickly go to Saka before we go to the.
Declan Rice on left 8 has changed things as well, because it's meant all of a sudden we got this ball carrier, this fantastic ball carrier at left 8 that emerged last season in a way that we'd not seen when he was playing 6. And that's changed the left-hand side again. And, I think it was a big part of the resurgence of Martinelli towards the end of last season, where actually he did put in a bunch of better performances. I think it was to do with the fact Declan Rice was playing out of his bloody skin. And a lot more was flowing down that left-hand side. So, yeah, you're right. The balances have changed and it might not be as important, but it's still something that was there.
Again, it's another option. It's another thing we can go to. It's another thing. Because Saka yesterday, he was on one. Again, he was just Saka doing Saka things. And, he was doing a lot of driving into the box, taking on his man, taking on defender, and he looked great. And actually, his goal, it may have looked easy, but I don't think it was, just to slot it in that place, because there were people going back and the speed at which that goal took place. It was such a nice move. 4 or 5 one-touch passes in the middle. Nelly finally making a run from left to right and in the middle. Not down a blind alleyway. Then touched it to Saka so Saka was superb in that first half yesterday. He also had that chance towards the end. Maybe could have done a bit better, but pre-season, whatever. But also the one thing you love about that second goal, who doesn't love 2 goals in quick succession? It's so nice. It's such a nice feeling, because yes, we're in the lead. Oh yes, now we're winning the game because we're 2-0 up, and it's sort of like you gotta like that. But so he, maybe because of the setup, he maybe had a bit more freedom. I don't know, or whatever. Who knows? Was it athletic? Was it our formation? So, but yeah, I think you're right. Again, it's another option. So having Ben White, Odegaard, we can fall back on that if we need it, depending on what the opposition are.
I'm not convinced there's a fallback, but we'll see. I mean, it's a bloody fullback, but I don't think it's so much a fullback. We'll see. Yeah. I think it'll be a real horses for courses thing. I think similarly as well. I look at, if we're playing against PSG or Real Madrid again, I'll probably go Julian Timber in my head, because I want somebody who is going to take on those individual talents they have in the left wing. Christ, Real can throw 3 different geezers at us at the moment on that left wing, and they're all spectacular individual talents, and I think Julian Timber will just be the guy that's able to take those out of the game in a way that Ben White isn't, but similarly, I look at a hell of a lot of games last season and I did feel we were missing Ben White. I really did think we were missing him going forward, and I think against teams that were defending deep. But we also ask a huge amount of the player on the right wing, on the right back. Sorry, we ask more, I think, of the guy on the right than we do on the left in terms of their.
It's less technical. I would say it's less technical.
Yeah, I think we ask a lot of them in terms of just up and down. Though it is up and down and up and down and up and down, and I think that's where it does mean the two of them are going to play a fair bit, because there's just so much where and wear and tear is a thing, and ultimately if we can prevent those by equaling out that time a little bit more, I'm sure that's something we'll probably do. But
then also, so like, we'll get onto Mosquera eventually. But talking about right wing, but also left wing. So Noni Madueke plays. So if he plays right wing, can you have Madueke and White together? Don't know, because again, potentially Noni's defensive play may not be as strong as, say, Saka.
I think they can work on that with him now. Again, I mean, if you're talking about the guy who turned Raheem Sterling into a really good defensive winger is our manager. So if Noni Madueke ain't listening to him, then he's a bit of an idiot, because he managed to turn Raheem Sterling into a player that was at times seen as being a bit of a problem for Pep because of that very quality, and he got him to be actually one of the hardest working off the ball wingers in the Premier League. That was a bit of a template for those to come later. So, I have no doubt they'll clean that up. I don't think that's a feature of Noni's game at Arsenal. I think they're going to make him, and if he doesn't, then he's going to struggle to get a game for Arteta, because I think that's one of his unacceptables, one of his non-negotiables. That's the one. He doesn't deal with that. He doesn't have players come in and become passengers or don't do the work they're supposed to do. And I think Noni's got so much of the other qualities. I would imagine that's going to be a key focus for him, to say, this is a job you have to do here, mate. You ain't got two ways about it. Every other winger at the club's had to do it. You need to do it. And if Bukayo Saka has to do it, you have to bloody well do it, Whether he'll be as good at it as a Bukayo Saka, who's particularly good, in fairness, to him. And so is Martinelli. It's one of his qualities, and something you lack a little bit when Trossard's there, unfortunately. But I think there's the potential. So we'll see them I'm sure we'll see them work on that. And over the course of a season, if he's getting a decent amount of game time, I expect to see him become a good pressing winger and, start to deliver on that.
Yeah. I mean, he showed, in terms of his proper job, he did show glimpses of what he had to offer yesterday, and he did stand out in terms when he came on, offering us again something different. Other than his massive shorts, he actually stood out in terms of it was good to see him being direct, getting to the line, trying to get crosses in first time, and again another. I think a great option down the left. I think when he's up to speed, got his fitness, he'll be pushing for a starting spot. I don't think at the moment he's there yet. I think even after 45 minutes yesterday, he was blowing. But he runs at players. He looks to cross. His early cross set up the Gyokeres diving header, the one that was brilliantly saved and hit the post. And I think it was everything that we were expecting. And just a bit rusty. And look, he's only been with us a few days and so on like that. So I think it'll be good. And again, this is another one. If you play him, we need to figure out who else plays around him and what they offer. But I think again shows glimpses, and I'm excited for that option down the left. And then finally, we were going to touch on this now, Mosquera. So we were talking about Timber being able to play across the defence. So Mosquera has played right centre-back against the Spurs, right back and right centre-backs against Villarreal, and he played left centre-back yesterday. So look, he's our, I would say he's versatile. He looks so good and a bargain for about 13 million. I mean, he is our Tommy replacement, I would suggest, and upgrade if he stays fit. And he's so strong and so fast. He's really competitive. There was moments yesterday you just see him tussling with the attacker and winning out. And look, I'm sure he's got a lot to learn, but he's got huge potential and that's I think he's a great signing for us.
Like him a lot, yeah. I really like so something that stood out against Villarreal for me, at least anyway, was his communication. For a young lad, he was communicating constantly, and he seemed to be doing quite a lot of organising around. And that sort of stood out a little bit as well. There's something about seeing a lad that young be quite so vocal as he was. In asking for help in places, in asking for this, asking for that, at least from what you can make out, especially for a lad as well that's come in and actually, he's kind of fortunate that I think Spanish might be our second highest spoken language at the club now, and shares a little bit of etymology with some Portuguese, but he doesn't really do English yet, as far as I'm aware. So it was nice to see him come in and be communicating, talking, and getting through the game in that respect. So yeah, I mean that's a super exciting. He's got those qualities, hasn't he? I bet that are becoming a little bit of a hallmark of the Arsenal centre half, which is pacey and aggressive and combative and yeah, like and gets to learn from two fantastic centre halves. When you're sat and you're at a club and you've got Gabriel and Saliba to learn off, and you're going to have to bide your time, but you want to prove to them, you want to show those boys that you're right behind them, and you're gonna be as good as them, and they're willing to give you the time as well. That's brilliant. That is going to do a hell of a thing for his career. So it's looking pretty positive.
Yeah, and it's hard to say he's like a mini Gabriel because he's a big guy and he's a bit more rangy, I would say. But yeah, you see some of the qualities that Gabriel brought to the team and brings to the team in terms of the way he plays and especially his competitive nature and just always gnarly and getting the players.
And it's the next step to be succession planning, right? Yeah. And to be thinking about guys. Yeah. You got to be doing that. Once you've got a centre half pairing like a Gabriel and a Saliba, that's one of your major strengths. You want to be succession planning. You want to be thinking about who's coming next and who's going to push them, from behind. Bit of a weird expression, that one, I guess. But who's going to be pushing up behind them, trying to get in that team and be there for, should one leave, should one have a big injury, whatever. But it's not just pure backup. It's about developing somebody to be there and be the next iteration of that player, whether that be in a couple of years or whether that be in a bunch of years. And it makes you more relaxed when you've got that bit of succession planning in place, right? You can feel a bit more secure that you've got the next iteration sat there. So, that's a real positive, I think, and he looks the part. And I'm not sure we'll see huge amounts of them over the course of the season, just due to where that position is and the fact there's so much competition in those spaces. But I look forward to seeing when we do. And 13 million, as you say, doesn't look bad, does it? We're not, we're talking decent money there, and I know they probably exploited the fact that he had only a year left at Valencia, right? And it could be, but this is one of these. We might have a couple of years ago gone, well, let's wait and see if we can get him in the 12 months. Maybe let's make some contacts with him and whatever. And it's nice to see us just go, no, 30 million will do for him. We rate him, at least that much and probably a bit more, and we don't feel he's a big gamble with the amount of football he's had at his age. Let's get him in. Yeah,
no, indeed. So again, another positive note, and the final positive note of yesterday's game, the positive cherry on the positive cake, so to speak, was that we finally won a penalty shootout in pre-season. So that kept the good vibes going, and I know I was oddly anxious. I mean, watching the penalties shootouts watching it on the computer, I couldn't give two shits. But I don't know, being there in the stadium, and it's more about, you just want the players to do well. You don't want anyone to miss. And look, I know it doesn't mean anything, but anyway. So but I do want to call out the fact that Athletic's penalties were, in the main, I think, apart from the two misses, obviously, were fantastic. Like unstoppable. Raya was diving the right way, but they weren't being stopped. So I was in a really good position.
We didn't bring on our penalty saver though, did we?
No, true, but but even Kepa wasn't getting anywhere near these. These were like top right hand corner jobbies, whatever. And I was right behind it, so you could see and Raya was guessing the right way. It just you ain't.
My watching of stuff did not extend to watching this. Yeah. I didn't even stay behind for it at the Villarreal game. To be honest, I got on my bike and I honestly I just can't. It's just so freaking meaning. In fact, I just enjoyed it as a way to stagger the crowds getting out, so I was able to disappear down the armoury and grab something on the way out. But I'm glad you enjoyed them. For me, the most pointless thing I've ever seen across a summer, because it's also as well for me just a really easy way to rile up a few people on the internet as well, to just go, how can we not be taking penalties? These should be easy for it's just honestly, because for me the thing with the penalty shootout is, and it's people talk about it, you can practice them all you want, and it's good to practice them, it's good to get your technique down, but ultimately you can't manufacture the actual conditions. I don't think there's any more value, that is less valuable surely than doing 20 minutes of them in a training session at some point, surely.
Maybe. And actually it could be worse if you miss, then you've got that in your mind. If you score, you score.
Exactly.
If you miss, anyway, it's a bit of fun.
Unless maybe what we've done, and this would be wonderful 4D chess, would be we've instructed every single player to take a different penalty to the one that they would when we get in the Champions League, so that when they go and do their research and they write down which way everyone goes, they get it wrong. We got 3 penalties on record from one player going the one way, and actually he's going to go the other bloody way in the Champions League semi-final, and we're going to make our way to the Champions League final off the back of that.
I like it. Let's hope so.
Maybe that's the new innovation from the young, from what's his chops, the set piece boy. I don't know if he's actually involved in pens, but
no idea. He just run up.
Probably should be Gabriel Heinze. That'd be the man. Maybe he's masterminded it all. Maybe that's what's happening.
I'd love it. I'd love to see it. Somehow, I think you're wrong.
Be an absolute banger, wouldn't it, if it was? I think that's what we should have done. I reckon I should get a job on the coaching staff now. That would be my idea.
If they reveal that at the parade, they say, "Oh, by the way, we won the penalty shootout because you thought we were shooting this way in the Emirates Cup, and it was all a big plan." So there we go.
If that happens, I'm digging out the audio of this and replaying it. I'm doing one of those clip up things and put it on the internets for the kids, going like, "Look, I predicted this."
There we go. Look, that's pre-season in terms of the games done with. Please, we ended on a positive note. Please, it's trending in the right direction. We've still got a week to go. I think we're going to have a good week of training. No behind closed doors friendlies. It's just all practice, and so on. So that there's a week left. In terms of the game. I know. Any thoughts in terms of starting 11? Look, we've gone through various options. We were close to it yesterday.
I think most of it's there. It's just literally, I think MLS probably comes in at left back. I think that's the sensible thing to do as well with the United's, all of their threat is in that front, which I know sounds a bit ridiculous, but They have a bunch of pacey and talented guys that are looking to make their mark in that front three. And I would rather have a Lewis Skelly, I think, up against Brian and Mbeumo, right?
Right back, Timber or White?
Right back for me that's an interesting one, because at the same time I don't think that Cunha is that good that it's a problem for Ben White in any way, shape or form. So that's an interesting one, free pick there. That's a bit of a, we'll see.
Havertz or Gyokeres?
Yeah, I mean, that's a super interesting one as well, because I think the interesting spots for me are definitely, I think you basically start the same team. You put MLS in at left back. You ask yourself a question in terms of Havertz and Gyökeres for sure, and then maybe I don't know, is there anywhere else in the team? I don't know. It's probably revolving around those. So, and for me, I would go MLS. I would probably go Ben White.
Okay.
I think I want to go Ben White, and I think I also want to go with Gyokeres. I think it's a game for him. I think offering them against that defence, which is not a bad defence. I think they've had a decent pre-season apart from that very last game against Everton as well. That's what I've been hearing. They've looked a lot more together as a team, and they look like they've maybe worked on a few bits and bobs. But I think certainly against their defence, I want to see that bit of penetration. I want to see that guy who wants to keep them occupied and make space around for other talent, because I don't think they've got anywhere near the capability in midfield and defence to be able to deal with the full array of attacking talent if we're on the ball. So yeah, we'll see what happens, but that's my kind of instinct, at least, anyway.
And Martinelli on the left.
Yeah, and I think that's just a where Noni thing is. That's not a. I do think genuinely, if he were coming in with a full pre-season where he played for us over the course, we'd know more. We'd know if he was going to, potentially play there. But I think certainly for me, actually against United specifically, I'd quite like to see Noni running at him and that directness and being able to take a man on. The main thing he appeals to me with is I think Martinelli goes outside half the time anyway. He doesn't really come inside in the way that Saka does. He hasn't got that same sort of instinct to roll across the defender. So hence, Noni going outside in his left feels like it might be the option that works. But we'll see. I mean, I don't think we're wedded to it in any way. I don't think there's anything shaping up. But I think I would have liked to have seen that if I could trust him. Not having had a full pre-season, I don't think I can.
Well, I think that's part. I think starting Gyokeres and Noni would be a bit dangerous in terms of or leaves us too vulnerable defensively, because our defense starts with our attack in terms of Havertz, Saka, Nelly, Odegaard. They know the press. They know it so well. They know the timing of it. That it's coordinated. So I think maybe there is having to be a pragmatic approach here. Yes, excitingly, yes, fine. We're chasing a game. Get Noni on, get Gyokeres on, whatever. But I just think from starting a game where much of what we do stems from our press, and if you've got players that, he won't start because I don't have fitness levels. But even if you don't know, if you've got two players out of your front four who don't know the press, then that's a big part of your game that you're sort of giving the advantage to United to. And look, they're not particularly brilliant getting out the back, but they play with a back five, so they've got options out wide and all the rest of it. So I just think that would be a bit too much. But we've got a great bench, so if one doesn't start, the other one's on the bench, and how fantastic is that? Like we said at the beginning, it's and as we've sort of discussed through the pod, is just all we're talking about here is options and what great options we have. So it's not a problem. And look, finally, unfortunately, you won't be joining Ian and I as we do our preview pod at the towards the end of the week. So just finally, in terms of the season ahead, how excited are you for the season ahead? What are your expectations? What would you consider to be a successful season?
I'm extraordinarily excited. I think you've got to be right. I think after the summer that we've had, and I just really want football back. But I really want this Arsenal back in particular. I really want to see what we can do, because I think the potential is so great. For this team. So what does success look like? I always struggle with putting down, sort of almost KPIs or where you've got to finish, all that kind of stuff. But I mean, what we can do, our potential, is to go out there and win the league and win the Champions League, to be honest. I think we're in the realms of that. I think that, if you look at where the club was last season, how we dealt with the adversity that we had and then became this big game animal that I think we really were. We've got a fantastic record in big games now. And to be where we were with injuries, fitness, what we were asking players to do, and go into that PSG game, and we know what happened with them in the final and going on to win it, and push them to the limit and feel like we're a little bit hard done by. I think this team has just got so much to offer. So if we stay injury free, I think this is going to be I think this should be the best of Arteta's, and you would really hope to see that silverware, right? It's just a question of which one to a certain extent, because we're in for all of them, I think. And I don't think any of them become minimum standards, because I don't attest to the whole. You're up against other teams.
Yeah, and you need so much to go your way.
I think
things to fall your way.
There's no regrets, right? And I think last season probably was the most regrettable we had of all the Arteta seasons, because I think in particular the biggest regret that we had was probably off field. It's probably not doing the business that we could have done in January. Saying that, I still maintain not doing it in January might work out better for us long term, because we didn't snatch at something. We didn't grab the guy who was the next off the rank. Maybe that is the best thing for us, and it certainly made for a really exciting summer of all these additions. I think the sky is the limit for him. I really do. And for me, it's just going to be about watching this team continue to develop, looking for who's going to break through. I think we're in that position now as well. We got really used to Arsenal being bloody good, and hence people are a bit impatient about it. But also, what comes with that as well is that the additions and the competition that brings, there's going to be some fascinating storylines throughout the season, and there's going to be a couple of guys at the end of the season that we feel differently about in comparison to how we felt at the start of the season. So, and some of those flashpoint players are fascinating. All the ones that we've discussed in a lot of depth, probably more than we should have. But it's exciting. I think that's the thing that I'm really looking forward to. So that's me. I mean, if you're making me predict who wins the league, I think it's between us and Liverpool. If you're making me predict who wins the Champions League, I think it's between 5-6 clubs and we're in it. So that's a hell of a place to be, because Christ knows, 4 years ago that weren't the case.
Indeed. And look, I will be sending through a list of your questions to predict, or a list of things to predict, and I'll read them out on Thursday with Ian. So watch out for that. And just finally, I did want to do a proper section on this, but we've been going bloody almost an hour and a half here. Do you think we're done in the summer? Do we need to do any additions?
No.
And do you think no? Okay.
I don't think we need to do any additions at all. Are we done? I don't think we are. Just due to, and it's not to say it's a prediction that we will sign somebody, but I think the work's continuing, because I just think it just feels like that's what our kind of front office is like at the moment. They are, exploring and looking to see what can be done. And obviously, the main, it's all about Eze, really, isn't it? Is the question.
Rodrygo on loan.
Rodrygo on loan, I think, is a fascinating one, because I think when we chatted about it when he first got mentioned, I said it feels like whatever's going to happen with Rodrygo, it won't. Players of that quality do not go until the end of a transfer window. They just do not. It happens when Real Madrid have sorted out exactly what they want to do, and either the player kicks up a fuss or he's made available. Mesut Ozil style, right? Yeah. But also similarly with the price tag involved and the way that windows work now and the way that PSR works, you can't shift a player of that quality at the end of a window, because nobody's got the budget for it at that stage. And all of the realistic options, which are probably us, Chelsea, I don't think Liverpool were in, but us, Chelsea, PSG, whatever, the big teams with a decent budget, I don't think one of them is going to be able to do it in the last week of the season. So I think it's the potential for a loan's there. It feels like we've been really interested. Hopefully, we've been keeping in contact. We've been in with this camp the whole time. And it's the options there to go, look, if something happens here, we're there at short notice to be able to work on a deal with Real and get him in. And if we've positioned ourselves like that, brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. So I'd love to see it. I think that would be really interesting and really good. I think a loan might benefit us in some degree. Maybe you have a mandatory fee with him, but it would always be nice if you don't, to a certain extent. And we'll see what happens. But both him and Eze are super exciting. Eze's the one that I find weird because I think he's the most unnecessary. I think, maybe he comes in and we make him a left winger, and he can also play elsewhere, and he's just yet another one of those players who plays multiple roles and at a very high quality. But he does feel like he's the one as well that is the killing of a player, the killing of Wanyeri, maybe the killing of Max Dowman in a couple of years' time. It feels a bit of a weird one for me, but nonetheless, you don't turn down top quality, do you?
Yeah, no, it feels like the left-hand side is where we can just get that final piece. We're always one player short of being that final team, that ultimate team. But everywhere else, we seem to have layers and quality and stuff. And it just seems the one place where we can upgrade. And it just feels like if we don't, it's potentially an opportunity missed.
I wouldn't mind two at some stage either. There's no other position I think that was in that position all summer. There was no one position in the summer where I could have said, to be honest, over the next year, I'd like to see two come in. Because I don't, Leo, A, is aging, B, is inconsistent. I love the lad, but I don't see him hanging around. Martinelli, I'm not totally done on the lad.
But we can sit, but we can upgrade on him.
If you could bring in Eze and Rodrygo, I think that's your squad then, and you just go, okay, sit back, this team's got to win something.
Everybody's going to explode. Well, fingers crossed if that happens, but yeah, we'll see. There's up until 1st of September, so let's watch this space. I think we've got to do some outgoings first, and we'll talk about that on Thursday. So look, that's 90 minutes in. Wow, that's all from a friendly against Athletic Bilbao. So not bad, but I think you can tell that we're both pretty excited about the season ahead. We've got some pretty good players. We've got some really good options, and I think it's going to be exciting times at the Arsenal. Stay fit. Who knows what can happen? So thank you, Jamie, as always. Appreciate you joining me.
That's right, mate. I'll see you after the United game, maybe, and maybe talk to you about how the season ended injury to 5 of our players and the and the 1-0 defeat to some fluke goal that they scored was really crushing.
And how it's all doom and gloom and Athletic Bilbao game mentioned that shit. So there we go. The life of an Arsenal fan. So look, you can follow the trials and tribulations of the Grove on the threads and Blue Sky at the Grove AFC. As I said, our next show will be the big season, a Man United preview and predictions pod with Ian, Ask Cannon Picks. This towards the end of the week, Thursday most probably. And then it's going to be full swing into the post-match, pre-match pods. And as we said, we're really looking forward to it. So as I asked at the beginning, and if you're still here, well done. I think Jamie is barely, and I can smell dinner, so I need to go. So if you enjoy what you hear, come and find us on the socials and like, subscribe, rate, all that jazz. It helps, and we really appreciate it. And we've enjoyed some of the comments we've had recently. So thank you very much to all that do that. So until the next time, come on, you Gunners.